You know, one of the things about Bitcoin, which is fascinating, is you can't understand money until you understand Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the first perfected money in the history of the human race. And you can't understand economics until you understand Bitcoin. The Austrian economists came closest to that, but they didn't have mathematically perfect assets. You have to rethink accounting, rethink economics, rethink money, and therefore rethink political history after you get orange pilled. And when you start listening and reading the history after Bitcoin, you start saying, okay, who printed the money? Where did the money go? Who financed that war? What was the result of that war? And what you do is you reinterpret all of European history, all of Roman history, all of Western history, all of American history. And of course, the good guys become the bad guys. Sometimes the bad guys become the good guys.
Boom, we're back. This is Pod 105 of the world's most bullish podcast, Bullish Bitcoin Banter and Bullshit, brought to you by the one and only Mr. All-In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, the People's Champ, aka also known as Dr. Evil 10%, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and she is here, but she's never here. You know who I mean, Mrs. No Show.
Do we know what she's doing?
Yeah,
I've heard a rumor.
trying to get her carbon footprint down to zero.
I've heard she's having a gender reveal this week.
Ooh, I wonder,
Decide what gender she's going to be.
I think it will be a zebra flavored unicorn.
Not an Apache helicopter.
Wild tropic guava.
Or a piece of sellotape.
Funnily enough for the listeners, we're seeing Miss No Show this week as long as she does show.
Yeah, I think she'll show.
You promised
So
that.
I was being asked by one of the listeners, who's Miss No Show? I told them, and they were like, oh, always forget. I'm like, that's because she's never on the show.
Did they misgender her?
Yes, it is.
That's funny.
So now we talked about our ESG credentials. Is it time to talk about Bitcoin?
Oh, well, yeah. Let's talk about Bitcoin before we get cancelled and continued not to ever be sponsored.
Yeah.
First story. Our God, our Saviour, Michael Saylor.
The Messiah.
The Giga Chat.
He goes by many a name, but he's here.
You need to,
clip.
yeah, I was going to say, you need to click your fingers.
You know, one of the things about Bitcoin, which is fascinating, is you can't understand money until you understand Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the first perfected money in the history of the human race. And you can't understand economics until you understand Bitcoin. The Austrian economists came closest to that, but they didn't have mathematically perfect assets. You have to rethink accounting, rethink economics, rethink money, and therefore rethink political history after you get orange pilled. And when you start listening and reading the history after Bitcoin, you start saying, okay, who printed the money? Where did the money go? Who financed that war? What was the result of that war? And what you do is you reinterpret all of European history, all of Roman history, all of Western history, all of American history. And of course, the good guys become the bad guys. Sometimes the bad guys become the good guys.
It's a good clip, isn't it?
It literally, this is one of the best clips in Bitcoin. It really is.
Is it an old one?
I don't think so. I think it's a recent podcast he did and someone clipped it out.
Because I was going to say, I've heard bits of that before from him. So he probably hasn't said the exact words, but he said, in various different pods and interviews.
I think it's interesting because literally, I think it was last week, I tried to say what he said there. Because we were talking about the everyman, weren't we?
Yeah, we were.
Once you get orange pilled and you start seeing things differently, and he was talking about pensions and taxable like child benefits and stuff, and you look at it in a different way. That's exactly what Saylor is saying here. Right? It's just once you've been orange pilled, you then you re-look at history at Roman history, at American history, at Western
The
history.
church.
You look at literally everything differently and go, okay, so the current narrative is this, but hold on, who was in charge of the money printer at the time? And so all this, who was funding all this problem? And suddenly when you follow the money, you go, well, hold on, maybe the guys that say they're the good guys weren't the good guys. Maybe they were the bad guys, and the bad guys were actually the good guys. Because hold on, the person that often wins in history obviously gets the right history, but they tended to also be in control of the money printer. So of course they're not going to blame themselves, and you look at it with a different lens on everything. But it's interesting because obviously, I mean, a lot of us are critical thinkers anyway, and you go, oh, we didn't trust verify before Bitcoin, but I used to look at history and largely know that a lot of history was written by the victors, right? And there's a lot of
Well, this is it. I always say when someone mentions Hitler fucking his niece or whatever it is, I'm like, how do you know? And I've always said that. How do you know?
I know.
They've just made him to be even worse by saying he fucked his niece. And it's just like, did he actually? Or is he just a nice uncle?
He's saying killing 6 million Jews wasn't bad enough. We had to keep adding stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think there's also a bit he had syphilis, and that's why he hated Jews. He caught it off some Jewish prostitute or something like that. So you kind of go, yeah, it's written by the victor, it's written by the person in power. And I think Saylor said Bitcoin makes you rethink everything. And it's so true. It ruined my life. I want to go back to the pod. I want to get in the pod, eat my bugs.
Well, exactly. Even
I'm paying to my pension.
And eat your steak, like ignorance is bliss, like in the Matrix. But that's the thing, though, isn't it? It's like I even go back to it when we started this pod. Like you guys weren't fully orange pilled. I mean, you were just in the journey. Because every time I ever brought anything up over history or government, you largely just put your tinfoil hat on, right? But then you start looking at these things objectively once you really were truly orange pilled and went, oh, okay, this is really got there. You just suddenly started looking at it with the same lens as me, and now you don't go, oh, that sounds conspiracy. You just go, you're just asking questions, going, well, hold on, why would that person do that? And did they have access to the money? But you're just asking genuinely intrigued questions, as opposed to
what's the benefit?
Oh, I've heard that people that think that are crazy, so I'm not even going there. You're looking at it with a different lens now, going, well, hold on, go on then. I think I can analyze this thing better now because I understand Bitcoin, therefore I understand money. Go on then, talk to me about that bit of history. He was in control of the money printer. And if they end up being the good guy in the end, you probably know it's bullshit because you know that's what America are doing right now. Yeah, and just they're printing everything. They say they're the savior, the American dream, But really, when you look and you dig into it, you go, a lot of the misery in the world, a lot of the poorest, a lot of the wars that are going on, who is funding all this? It's America.
We've covered it all.
Maybe they're not the good guys.
And it's reading some of the books which has led me down, which are like, critically acclaimed, but they're not conspiracy theories books. And it's just the whole thing about Ecuador and Panama still goes right through me. I literally still cannot believe that is true, but it is. And then the stuff around Africa, I cannot believe that is true, but it is, with France. And you're kind of going, why are all the Africans so poor? It's because they're being fucking extorted, and all
didn't donate enough on Red Nose Day.
Well, it'd be better if you give them a mosquito net and just continue stealing the diamonds, oil, gold, and everything else which you're taking.
It's funny you say this as well, right? Because I heard such a fear response to reading, and it was kind of like a little bit of a dig, but when we're in different tax brackets, you don't really take digs from people below. So it was like obviously we read, and he says, oh, what he doesn't get is the fact that these people that write the books, they're writing it so that you join them, and it's only from their perspective. So that's why you're rich. I'm like, have you heard yourself? Like,
sorry,
really?
Sorry. Repeat that.
Yeah. So he said like the people that write the books only want you to buy the books, and that's why like you're rich and think like that. And I'm like,
That's why you're rich and think like
yeah,
that.
How would you get rich off buying someone else's book?
So why doesn't he buy? Why doesn't he buy the book and get rich?
exactly. That's my point. Why don't you buy the book and get rich? Because what you're currently doing isn't helping you right now.
No, and then
And I was just like,
he nearly had a point there, because there are a lot of scams out there where people
Oh yeah,
promote get rich quick schemes and like, oh, buy my
Yeah.
course, buy my book. But yeah, if you just buy a book because you saw it on Instagram and someone goes, oh, I got my Lamborghini through this, buy my $10 course or whatever from Instagram and you'll get yours next. You're clearly that's going to be a scam, right?
clearly,
But there's
yes,
plenty
all day.
of well-established money and investment and how to be smart financially that are very well like respected. If you buy any of those
Yeah.
books, of course, like the people wrote them probably to make money. Of course they did.
well,
But is
well,
they
I
got
don't
right-
know, because there's a whole stream of books which I've been reading quite a lot lately by people like Joel Greenblatt, Ray Dalio, Parbry. There's also ones around Jack Bogle, Warren Buffett, where they don't need to write those books. But the fact is, I want to learn more about them. Since we're in a fiat world,
I mean, I don't even think Warren Buffett's actually wrote a book. He said,
some people get rich off that.
Yeah, someone's got rich off him. But
So
you're right in terms of the
Joel
others.
Greenblatt's probably the most precise one, because he's written quite a lot of books and he's a billionaire. He doesn't need to write a book and earn 100 grand.
Yeah.
And look, like even if you don't do it for money, right? A lot of people do it for clout. Having a New York Times top seller is something that these rich and powerful people do to be able to put it on their LinkedIn and just say that they've had a bestseller. Fine. But like his argument is, well, fine, don't read books then. Like no one's forcing you to read books.
Exactly.
If you like reading books and you get stuff from it, read books. If you don't fucking read them. Like,
Yeah,
but I'm not
exactly.
sure where you're going to get your information from, because
I think
there's a couple of people that have distilled down decades worth of knowledge and they'll put it into a couple of 100 pages. That's valuable. There might literally only be, sometimes I'll read a book, it's 300 pages long, might take me a couple of weeks to get through it, and I might take one thing from it. But that's good. Like if I take one thing and then end up using that day to day, then that book, that £10 that I paid on the book, great. Because I learned
all I'm ever looking for.
Those little golden nuggets, isn't it? And all of us have different golden nuggets that we're missing.
so. Does this person read at all?
No.
I bet
So-
everyone reads, but normally they read in like 7-second chunks, which is scrolling down TikTok or Facebook or Instagram.
So literally, he's either reading Instagram or reading Nuts magazine.
Yeah.
Oh man, you're showing your age there.
Yeah.
Is it not a thing anymore?
I doubt it.
No, I think
Man,
that
in the
top
Me
shelf
Too-
got.
The Me Too.
Yeah, exactly.
Nuts and
That
FHM,
all
I'm pretty sure like they're just going to be a load of fat lesbians on there now. Like,
And it's like, all men love dicks. Here's some picture of dicks.
Stop being
Because you love
sexist.
them.
No,
Stop
this
being
is what you
sexist,
once
man.
could have had. Yeah, this is what you once could have had before the world got woke.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I will also add that there are people like Donald Trump and Robert Kiyosaki who just get the information out because they wanted to get the information out and expose the truth because they wrote a book. We want you to be something along the lines of money and why we want you to be rich, or something along those lines. I'll Google it. But essentially, they were saying, this is what to do. And there are
It was leveraging
like
debt,
Ray
wasn't it?
Dalio. Yeah, people like Ray Dalio. He has, he's the 76th richest man in the world. He just wants to get the message out. Saifedean,
I think he
just wants.
I think
to get
Ray
the message
Dalio
out.
just likes economics and history of money and finance and everything. He likes
Yeah.
studying a bit and putting it all together. So interesting take. But yeah, how do we get onto this? Oh yeah, I suppose a bit of a detour, but we're talking about Sailor. So yeah, I think it's once you get Bitcoin. I think I've seen a few comments where it says why do Bitcoiners think that they understand everything? It's just like, well, they understand a lot more than most people.
I think that was on last week as well.
Yeah,
Right, when I watched this clip from Sailor, like usually it wouldn't. It's not newsworthy, but it's just. I thought it was just so. It's just such good timing because in that 50 seconds, he probably summarized the last 4 hours of our pods. He's like, that's it. That explains it. And I'd actually be interested for a non-Bitcoiner just to watch that. And he'd probably go, oh yeah, arrogant Bitcoiners again, thinking they know fucking everything. I know history. I've got a degree in history. You think I don't know it? You think I don't know the goodies and baddies? And you go, weirdly, no, because do you understand money? You need to understand money first. Understand the money printer, understand scarcity. And eventually, once you get that, go and do your history degree again. And it will just open your eyes because incentives matter. And the majority of incentives is it's money and power, right? So you probably had the power one, but you didn't have the money one. So overlay that on your knowledge. And the landscape looks very, very different.
Agreed.
But anyway, should we move on to JP Morgan?
Yeah, I will also say as well, just on that before we do, because we can't forget that Saylor was a detractor from Bitcoin. Like, he was told about Bitcoin many years ago before this. So when he actually started to look into it, we are seeing a full 180 of a person that has gone down the rabbit hole and has explored it and has reevaluated his thoughts. So I do think it's also always worthwhile because he came into it kind of late, maybe 2020. So
he was, I think, right before May. So the market was
most
going
people
up.
are.
Yeah, the market was rising rapidly. I was going to say you weren't.
I was 2017.
Well, no, I bought 2017, but you didn't start buying properly till late 2020, did you?
2020. Let's get the ledgers out.
After I said, son, have a look, read this. And you were kind of going, I don't need to read this. I'm like, read it. And you read it, and then you started buying.
I started buying more.
Yeah, and then Miss No Show YOLO'd in.
He's right.
You guys all mark the top.
You mean the last top?
Yeah, just the local top, for that cycle. But
I think everyone starts off as a detractor. Is kind of like is a kind of story on that. I just don't think, well, unless you're involved in the initial bit, I just think everyone starts off very skeptical, doesn't understand it, doesn't get it, and it takes time to understand what the hell's going on with the magical internet money.
Yeah.
Like I we discussed, like the entire fiat system is based on money. So the lies are very far entrenched. They're entrenched everywhere. All the inflation is good, quantitative easing is good, savings is normal, like pensions are normal. Everything going up in price is normal. Government's owning all the money, completely normal. The world would be chaos if this wasn't the case, and you grew up with all that. So to get Bitcoin, you have to throw all that in the bin. And that's hard. That's why most people buy Bitcoin. They don't throw that in the bin yet. They just go, kind of make some easy, fast money on Bitcoin. And that's how you start going, let's just make some easy money. And then you realize, why am I trying to make easy money? It's because of inflation. It's because of government money printing. You're like, oh my God, I shouldn't even be trying. And then slowly but surely, you orange pill yourself and the entire mask of the fiat system falls down and you just see it for what it is and go, holy shit. I thought I knew what was going on. And then you get Bitcoin and you go, now I know what's going on. And I was and like me now, probably like just talking to me 10 years ago, I don't even want to have that conversation because I'd have been so confidently wrong like about so many things. But
you're right. It's having a good grounding, isn't it, for it? But that's why we bring this pod to everybody, essentially distilling what's going on, not only in the week of Bitcoin, but globally and then also historically as well, for others to then, verify themselves afterwards. But we're doing the hard work for you.
Yes. Look at
So next story is JP Morgan, one of the largest banks in the world, and Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, manipulating the price of Bitcoin. You know, the same Bitcoin that they were trashing not so long ago. So in the post, it talks about exactly when. Oh, wait, we should be clicking fingers for another less than 1 minute clip.
Oh, yeah.
And essentially, it shows the trades and the comments. So Jamie Dimon comes out and talks about Bitcoin. If anybody owns it within the business, will be fired. So there was a steep drop of JP Morgan employees who quickly relinquished with speed to a 24% drop in Bitcoin. And then all of a sudden, on the other side, there becomes another trader. And guess who that trader was? Yep, you guessed it. JP Morgan themselves.
Heck, this is how the rich get richer.
Yes.
This is not illegal to do.
No, the manipulating the news cycle, if you're
Yes.
smart about it, is they can get away with it. Nobody's ever been arrested for anything like
So-
this. On September 12th, Jamie Dimon says Bitcoin is a fraud. He says he'll fire any one of his traders buying Bitcoin. Bitcoin drops 24%. When Jamie Dimon speaks,
People listen.
people listen. So that weekend, we found out that the largest buyer of a Bitcoin fund that's in Europe that buys physical Bitcoin, right? The largest buyer was Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan. And that's not illegal.
He says it's a fraud.
It says we fire anyone that buys
fire.
it. Yes.
And at the same time, his company is buying
His
it.
company is buying it.
So it's just, I mean, so unethical.
Right.
Here's a question. If you type in Jamie Dimon into Google, what are the search suggestions?
Is he trans?
Not quite.
Is he a devil?
Well, I'm getting the first one, Jamie Dimon's salary.
Jamie
The se-
Dimon and connections to, what's his name that died?
What do you mean,
He
who committed suicide?
Yeah, committed suicide.
Yeah, Epstein. So it's
Epstein.
salary, Epstein, wife, president, daughter, height. So number
Yeah.
2 is Epstein. I'm kind of
Epstein.
going, I didn't know about that one, but interesting.
Was he on the flight
Yeah.
list, was he? Flight manifest.
It's just come up as, I was just typing Jamie Dimon just to find his wiki, and it came up as a suggestion, Epstein.
Yeah.
So good, the Tate and Tucker Carlson interview where he kept on repeatedly saying, I will never kill myself.
Yeah.
I don't believe that Epstein was killed.
This is nuts,
He
though, right?
committed to- Sorry.
Yeah. But this whole little video, because I remember it happening at the time, because this is about, I think it's about a year ago, I think this.
Mm.
There's something, it's at the beginning of 2022 or something, I think these clips are from. I remember him saying it, and he said, yeah, Bitcoin is a fraud, and I'd fire anyone that was buying Bitcoin. And I think he said this on like a Tuesday.
It
And
was
then-
September 2022.
Okay, so, yeah, so the end of September. And then he said that. Yeah, he was about to, it was a couple of months later, it launched that JP Morgan was allowing their institutional investors to buy Bitcoin. And you go, hold on. Last time we heard him speak about Bitcoin, he said it was a fraud and he'd fire anyone that bought Bitcoin, that owned Bitcoin. And now, a couple of months later, you have a Bitcoin offering. When were you buying the Bitcoin to back this? And guess what? It turns out straight after those comments, because obviously he's one of the biggest voices in the fiat finance world. So he managed to dump the price of Bitcoin by 24%. JP Morgan load up their offering of Bitcoin that they clearly need to buy. And but the real tale of this is that manipulating the markets and doing stuff like this, talking about an asset and dumping it, provided you're not on the inside of the asset and you don't know something that other people don't, it's not illegal. So there's nothing illegal about being an influential figure in finance, totally slating an asset wrongly, and knowingly wrongly doing it, just so other people sell it, so you can buy it and then launch a product and go, oh no, I've always said it was great, and I've changed my mind. You go, it's a little bit of a coincidence that you changed your mind 3 days after publicly slamming it, and that's when you loaded up your bags. That looks like you were abusing your position, but there's no law against this. So, even though it's factually correct, and no one can say at JP Morgan, in some shape, like they clearly benefited from this. And as the CEO, he clearly knew that they need to buy some Bitcoin for a Bitcoin product they were launching a couple of months later. So he knew all this going into whatever conference he was at where he slated Bitcoin. He slated it, and then clearly his right-hand men behind the scenes went, cheers. We'll scoop up a load of Bitcoin on the cheap, and then we'll start offering our Bitcoin offering now. And then that sounds criminal to me. In the finance world, that sounds criminal because...
but he's part of JP Morgan. It's just these things are never going to be illegal.
Somehow, it'd be illegal if we did it. If we had the power to do it, they would find a law to prosecute us. But because it's
I also found another place where he said he would fire employees for trading Bitcoin for being stupid. His exact words were, "It's a fraud and worse than tulips. I'd fire them in a second for 2 reasons. It's against our rules and they're stupid, and both are dangerous."
Exactly. Like literally, that is not just saying something slightly negative about Bitcoin. Isn't like, oh, I'm not a believer. That's full hog. Yeah. That is Bitcoin is rat poison squared type comment. Yeah. And even worse in the reality, that's it literally saying, if you own Bitcoin and work for JP Morgan, then keep it quiet. Because if we find out, that means you're stupid, and we don't want stupid people working here. Yeah. Yeah. A couple of months later, he launches his Bitcoin product. And I remember him launching it as well. It's kind of a load of bollocks anyway, because he's launching it only to, I think you had to be worth over 2 or 3 million to be able to even get in to
That's right.
the offering that JP Morgan were doing. It wasn't for the plebs. It was for the rich and powerful that wanted exposure to the price of Bitcoin. So even that is a product with bollocks, but he clearly needs to have some collateral behind the scenes ready for these big buyers, because he knew once he launched the product, it would probably pump the price of Bitcoin. So he wanted to get it early and then sell the Bitcoin to these big players at the inflated price. And so I no doubt they made their 30-40% manipulating the market.
Yeah, it's what they do, isn't it? It's what they do. And ultimately, I think they have to do things like this because they know that they were late coming to the market, and therefore they need to somehow catch up. Now, of course, they've got the clout financially to do so, but they have to scare weak hands. And it's just the reverse or a different form of what we've seen previously when people were told to give in their gold, essentially. But this is just the same old script, but just a different stance to it.
Well, just going to say, you're not expected to win in the fiat casino, are you?
No.
Like, you may win a bit, but
correct.
It's certain people are set up to win. Like, Epstein appeared from nowhere as a billionaire, didn't he? From a fiat casino. Just because he's relevant. And then Jamie Dimon and Larry Fink have had very dubious backgrounds and kind of emerged. Christina Lagarde is another one, but they've all won big on the fiat casino, fiat Ponzi scheme. And no doubt they're all millionaires or billionaires now.
But I think, to your point, there's a lot of people that have won in the fiat casino or outside of, I guess, the realms of what they want you to stick with. And therefore, they know full well that Bitcoin sits out of that and they don't have that control. I will say once again, this is not financial advice, and none of us on this podcast own any Bitcoin, just in case we ever work for JP Morgan.
That would never be happening, do
Yeah, exactly.
That'll never actually fucking happen. Yeah. Our next story, I put this one on. I've been waiting to get to this one all week. KYC and AML.
I knew you were going to do it.
I saw it and I just went, fuck's sake, this is about the third attempt which you've had of putting this on.
Yeah.
This is a recent article.
He's trolling us.
I'll say what I'm going to say. No comment.
Sound like you're a pussy. But no, right, as always, right, with a good Bitcoiner article, it's just got the facts in it, right? So, anyone that doesn't know what KYC and AML are, it's know your customer, anti-money laundering. And these things came in, right? Every single time you do a financial transaction online, what these things were supposed to do, essentially identify the person sending it and the receiver getting it, and making sure you knew the ID of both people to stop fraud, money laundering, sex trafficking, drugs, all the bad things, right? All the bad things that were happening, especially with the invention of the internet, because these only came around in the 1990s to 2000s. That's when they really got their hold. And it was really the introduction of the internet that really pushed it into the mainstream, where they were KYCing and AMLing everything. They would do it for large transactions in the traditional world anyway. So if you wanted to send over 10K, buy a house, buy a car, they would do KYC and AML on people previously. But just doing a bet down your local bookies, or what would another example be? Maybe just buying something over a certain amount of money, you wouldn't. But now suddenly, with the online world, it opened up the opportunity to go, actually, we can KYC and AML people constantly. Now, obviously, we know a lot about this. We've worked in this sector, and this is another thing, right? The beginning story was you look at things differently once you've been orange pilled. Now, when I was in this industry and I worked the majority of my career in this industry, I genuinely thought I was working for the good guys. I thought I was stopping a load of bad guys from transacting online, moving drugs around, child sex trafficking, all this really bad stuff, because that is everything we're told. We're told that people are trying to do this through gambling sites, through banks, through whatever. And then you look at it again and go, well, hold on, what's actually going on? And really, what KYC and AML is doing is putting the name, address, and identity documents of just everyday people on every single financial transaction on any website on the web. And you go, and basically allowing governments to track money globally through the internet, and they can then do what they want with that information, is essentially making sure they receive their tax off gains. And they just want to, it's just surveillance, right? They want to know where the money is. It was a big threat when the internet came out that suddenly, people aren't just moving money from bank account to bank account, or just taking money out in cash and handing it to people they live around. Suddenly now, whole businesses, operations, investments can be done anywhere in the world. So they needed that safety net. And you go, okay, well, that sounds a little bit skeptical. Maybe did it stop the crime? Well, it did stop some crime, yeah. It stopped 0.05% of it. 99.95% of criminal and terrorist financial proceeds fall through the cracks of AML and KYC. Because guess what? It doesn't fucking work. Asking for ID documents of people online anyone that is actually a serious criminal can get fake documents, and they fly straight through the process. It's a piece of piss. So all it's really doing is surveilling and giving a breadcrumb trail for the government if they may need it to take a look at tax. And as we're seeing here, that they list an example of Nigel Farage. He's recently had his.
I was going to say the recent one was a bit misinterpreted, wasn't it? About he didn't have the assets within the bank account to have a premium account initially.
You didn't close accounts for that. You downgraded them.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure he's just downgraded initially.
Well, I heard you. Well, I heard him on the radio saying his bank account was closed. And then they don't just close one account either, do they? Because let's say he didn't have enough money. Because clearly they made up a fucking reason, right? Because the problem is with KYC and AML, and I have come foul of this as well myself, because I'm a Bitcoiner and because I've moved large amounts of money around. They felt like I was too high risk, and they just go,
"You're an alleged Bitcoiner for tax purposes."
Yeah. They just went. This
is purely fictional. Purely fictional.
Yeah, it's this was a friend of mine. Yeah. And they say, "Oh, we can't tell you. Yeah, it's the money laundering and blah blah, like fraud flags." And you go, "Well, tell me." But it's written into the legislation really that you don't need to say, and it's a criminal offence to not listen to these things. So it just gives them carte blanche to allow to basically pick and choose who they want to give banking to or not. Because in the story around Nigel Farage here that I'm reading now, it's they closed one account and you went, all right, whatever, fuck them. I'll go and apply for a bank account somewhere else. 7 other banks refused.
Yeah. Did they actually refuse him or just delay him because he would have been flagged as a PEP, so a politically exposed person?
Refused to open an account, which is weird because you can open an account with any financial services company whilst being a PEP or on the sanctions list, but they just have to treat you differently and just be aware of it, essentially. Whereas they, as it states here, just simply refused to open the account. Which then rose to 9 after a few days later. So refused from 7, climbed to 9.
But it's just, for me, it fitted perfectly with the agenda, just because when you get orange pilled, you look at stuff and you go, who are the goodies, who are the baddies? Like, we're told, and literally this article kind of makes fun of it, right? The AML and KYC are 2 superheroes. They're here to stop all this bad stuff happening, yeah? And when you go back 15 years, believed it, hook, line, and sinker, totally believed it. I thought that's what we were doing. And then I remember this 99.95% of all the terrorist funding and fraud still happens. I remember an article coming out about this a couple of years ago. I went, what? And because I remember all the stats even inside our business, and fraud, all the graphs for fraud online just kept going up. I was like, how is this happening? Like, but originally we were pretty much one of the first anti-fraud companies going for all this online stuff, and now there's thousands of them, yet the amount of fraud happening is just going up exponentially. How is this true? Because every website worth their salt, they have to use these services. They have to. So I get that there's plenty of websites that maybe just throw that in the bin and do it anyway, but they will account for a tiny percent of the kind of transactions that are going through, right? And eventually they will get shut down and arrested because not having KYC and AML is illegal. And then you just go, all right, yeah, I thought I was working for the goodies. Guess what? I was working for the baddies. Like, Bitcoin does it again. And now I hate my 15-year career. Like, throw that in the bin.
Well, thank you for that topic.
Thank you for saying no comments, you fucking pussy.
I think one thing which I took away from this was the mention of KYC and AML was brought in to stop drug trafficking. And what are governments doing now? They're making drugs legal, so they can tax them pretty much.
Yeah, because it's a huge industry where they're not getting any gains.
Oh, they do make gains. They make a shit ton of money off the war against drugs. That's the
Yeah,
disgusting
true.
thing
On the
about
other
it.
side, yeah.
It's yeah, that's why they will never make drugs completely legal across the board, because the war on drugs is too profitable. It funds entire police departments, entire courts, lawyers, prisons. If they really made drugs legal, the tax that they could make on the other side would pale in comparison to how much money they can make imprisoning people. And obviously, who do they imprison around drugs as well? It tends to be the people down towards the bottom that are struggling the most. So they need to make them enemies anyway. So giving them the only option for their life is to deal drugs. It's perfect to almost allow them to do that and then arrest a nice percentage of them and make it profitable. Because if they didn't have drugs, then they might actually get together and just fucking cause a revolution. Because that they would suddenly realize how corrupt the system is. There's literally no way out. So bizarrely, by giving them a poisoned way out, which is this like little ladder that this is your way out of this hole of debt and misery that you've been born into. There's a ladder over there, but it's a risky one because it's called dealing drugs. Some of you might get out, some of you will make it through, but we'll get most of you. And at least it gives them all something to do. Gives all these, underprivileged communities right around the world something to do, instead of realizing how hard done by they are and how they should freaking fight back against a system that's fucked them. They deal drugs instead as a fuck you to the system. And the system picks up however many they want. Until the prison's full, then they just stop. Wait for some vacancies, go get a few more. Anyway. All right, fine, we can move on. Christine Lagarde.
Oh,
that will be the quietest story that we ever cover on a pod where neither of us comment. Yeah, pod 105.
We'll come back to this, right? We'll come back to this when you both got fuck you money and you're out. And then I want to actually hear your opinions, because I've mentioned this at least 3 times. Yeah, you just fucking won't comment.
What do you expect?
Don't know. Not sucking off your boss, but yeah.
Is someone feeling left out?
I'm not left out. You're the ones.
Do you want a ball?
I'm over here, fucking having a beer, and you're just over there, just noshing off your boss, fingering his arsehole. I'm like, boys, you don't need to do that anymore. Stop it. Stop it.
Is it because you want to play him like a trombone?
I've fucking been there, done that. Dick tastes like shit. I ain't doing it.
Go on to Christine Lagarde. So it's a video, isn't it? So you need to click your fingers for this.
That is my signature, but that is your money. You should have a say about how a banknote looks like. We have selected a few options, and you should participate in our survey so you can tell us what you like and what you don't like about the themes that we have selected. Thank you.
I love Christine Lagarde. She's like one of my favorite baddies ever. So this video is you get to have a say about the EU money. So this is everyone. You're part of the EU. You've got the euro. You can say so, you could say, we only want a limited supply. We want you to stop inflating. We want you to give some more money to poor orphans in Africa. No, you get to choose the colour of a banknote. That's what you get. And you get to put a nice little JPEG on that picture. Well, actually, you don't even get to choose. You get to pick a design. So it's pretty much, they're putting out a survey with a couple of designs on saying pick which one you like the most because we care about you so much, but we're still going to print you into poverty.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh yeah, we want to give you a choice. It's just like, you're not giving anyone a choice. You're getting them to colour the turd which you're throwing at them.
This is what you would do at like a nursery school, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because they don't understand the concept of money. You just go, what color do you want it to be, kids? Yeah, and let them kind of color the money. But you are being patronizing, but you go, look, they're 4, right? So let them just pick the color. And then to the adults, you would have a much more adult conversation and go,
the adult says, do you want to be shot with a black gun, the grey gun, or the pink gun? Which one do you want to be shot by?
It's the classic, like when you go to Pizza Express, what I was thinking about in this article, where you give the kids the colouring crayons, and in the interim, that's what keeps them entertained, isn't it? It keeps them quiet.
It is a good comparison. The crayons.
Yeah, the crayons.
It's like, you don't know what's going on. Have
Exactly.
the crayons.
Have the crayons. Let mummy and daddy order. Let mummy and daddy talk. And you just have the crayons. And it works.
Yeah. The funny thing is, obviously, the comments again underneath this are just full of "you're a criminal," because Christine Lagarde is a convicted criminal. She did commit financial fraud, but it was just full of just Bitcoin that's just ripping the piss out of her, going, "How about we get some decision over how much you print, as opposed to what color the fucking printed money is?" But in some shape or form, you just know that there's some people out there in the masses they're really excited about choosing the color of their money, and they think this is. I clicked on that link, and I just know the people that created that page were going, "Oh, this is so good." As the European Union is allowing the people to have a say over the money. This is so progressive, so good. And you just go, what color the money is does not fucking matter.
She's got 254 likes. And it's just like, I'll go down a little bit, and there's someone called Circa Trova who has posted the frog of shame. If a frog of shame gets more likes than the original tweet, then your tweet really sucks. 527 likes for him.
Yeah, because you've got to remember that people's mindset is that, wow, I might be able to pick the colour of the new €20 note. Like, that to them is like quite epic, whereas we're like, yeah, but that money's going to be worthless in 5 to 10 years time tops. And so that piece of gratitude that you're going to get from that is really nothing. You want this over there, but we're so far removed from it that we're looking at it with this lens and this spec and these specs, whereas 80% of the people will be like, this is amazing. It's like the classic, choose the color of your debit card.
Oh shit, I did that. I liked it as well.
We've all fallen for the trap.
I put some cats on it. Some cats. Yeah.
Yeah. But so now they've just taken the same concept, but to physical cash.
Yeah, it's just so patronizing, isn't it? And it's give the people a vote on the things that matter. Because bizarrely, apparently, we live in a democracy, right? So these decisions can't be made without the people agreeing and voting for it. And you go, okay, let us vote for interest rates. Let us vote for how much inflation is going to be. Let us vote for whether you go to war or not. Let us vote for the real big things that materially matter to the people. Let us really vote for this stuff. And instead, their version of that is now every 4 years you get to vote for the guy that's got either a blue or red or yellow tie on. And then he makes all the decisions after that. And even then, does he? Because, well, Christine Lagarde never got voted in. She just got appointed as the head of the EU bank. And now she is deciding what interest rates are. She is deciding what inflation will be for the whole of Europe. Yet, however, the color of that money is yours. You can decide that. It's nuts how patronizing it is. What do we expect, Dave? That these people are criminals. We know what they're doing, and they play to the lowest common denominator. And yeah, the people on Twitter that are commenting on there, that they're not the average person. They are the people that are clued in. They're the people that have been orange pilled. They can see the complete insult this is to our intelligence.
It really is.
But for the average gran and mum and dad probably running around Europe at the moment, even they would probably go, isn't that a little bit stupid, a little bit patronizing? But what colours are going? Oh, red, blue, or yellow. Oh, okay, I vote for red. Oh, yeah. Colour my favourite football team. You go, oh man, like, it doesn't matter what fucking colour the
like
paper
Walker's
is.
Crisps, pick your own flavour, isn't it?
Yeah, at least you get to choose whether you buy them or not, or get paid in that.
Yeah,
That's fine. That genuinely is. That's fine. That is involving your customer base because of the choice. The problem that we have around money is the fact that if you live in the European Union, you have no choice. You are taking this money. You're accepting their interest rates. You accept their inflation rates. That you have no choice in the matter. And then the one choice they give you is whether it's red or blue. That's not.
Whether it's a picture of a cat on it.
Yeah. Maybe that's fine. So let's move on to a proper story. Bricks go for gold.
So this is what I'd like to point out. So a friend sent me this. She knows I'm big into Bitcoin. He's still in the motions of being orange pills.
Just a socialist.
But, yeah. So like I said, it's maybe longest bloody orange pilling, but I feel like I'm getting somewhere because a lot of the conversations have disappeared from a couple of years ago.
Mate,
so
you're in the fiat zone, i.e. the friend zone. You never go orange pilling.
So there's been rumours circulating for at least the last year about BRICS adopting a gold standard. So this is an article from Forbes saying, but just to quote, they are apparently settled on using a gold standard as a basis of their currency. So I think this is seen as a way, well, the interpretation it's seen as a way to crash the euro and the dollar. So we all know the dollar's on breaking. It basically is Rome. We're obsessed with agenda, drug-ravaged streets, crime-ridden. They just go to war with anyone to try and steal the natural resources. So it looks like the mixture of, who is it, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. We use them as gold-backed currency, which would be seen as a lot more stable in the hope that other countries will trade in it, making their kind of like stake a lot bigger. Now, what I'd like to point out, it is apparently, so it's a bit of a rumor mill. It could just be a way of unsettling things, especially with everything going on between Russia and Ukraine at the moment. But what I'd also like to point out on here is really good point. In 2009, Libya's Gaddafi proposed a Pan-African currency with gold dinner, echoing the gold dinner coins of the Arab caliphates that once ruled North Africa. But did you know that unrest in Libya in 2011 put an end to such ambitions? Strange how it just happened at that point when they're talking about having a gold standard. Just like when Saddam Hussein said he wanted to pay for oil in euros and not in dollars.
Do you think there's a...
No, I think it's just a massive coincidence.
Oh, okay.
Everyone's happy. They all got slices of birthday cake.
which is why this story is interesting, right? Because at the moment, history has shown that since 1971, once we moved off the gold standard and on essentially to the US dollar standard, then everyone that has come out publicly and gone, I'm not going to use the US dollar as my standard currency for trading internationally. I want to use gold or something else. It's been attacked in some shape or form. There's either been a military coup or there's been a war come their way. But this one does look bigger because it's BRICS in Brazil, Russia, India, and China.
What's also interesting later in the article is it does insinuate that the IMF, so the International Monetary Monetary Funds, not the US, said that you're not allowed to have a fixation on the price, so it's illegal. So basically, they said the gold standard is illegal back in 1978. So that's a really interesting, which I've never heard about. Really good one to put in. So I suppose why this is highly relevant is because Bitcoiners and economists always talk about how we should be on a gold standard to manage money. So we've got some kind of like fix or peg as such. And I suppose a concern from anyone who's not very far along the journey would be, well, doesn't this destroy the use case of Bitcoin? And my answer is quite firmly no. And it's quite simple because of what history's shown. So when gold standards have been used, they've been unpegged regularly for wars. So during the First and Second World War, they're unpegged and then repegged at a much lower price. So you're still draining the riches or, I suppose, savings of the citizens by going, oh yeah, we had a war, we need to do it. And we've seen so many occasions in the last 20, 30 years where wars have been very unjust. So Iraq is a really simple one. Where were the weapons of mass destruction? Or Afghanistan, which was going after a terrorist or four terrorists or something, but bombing a whole country, yet spending 20 years doing it.
Even if not as war, right? Just in between the wars, they kept printing.
Yeah, I'm using as examples of, they used World War One and Two to unpeg the dollar, the pound, and everything else.
Yeah.
So in these occasions, if we were still on a gold standard, we would have unpegged for Iraq. We would have unpegged for Afghanistan for 20 years, for them to basically bomb a whole country to shit because they wanted four people.
Yeah.
So can you trust a government to go on a gold standard on something which they can unpeg? And the answer is no. You need a currency which they are fixed to, which is mathematically impossible to expand, and there's no way of circumnavigating.
Yeah. The thing is, this is actually one of the first things that I've read that goes that I actually start to be more in agreement with Saylor when he says Bitcoin might not be the only currency. It may coexist with other fiat currencies. Because up until now, people have said, oh, but if countries go back to a gold standard, so essentially they get rid of inflation largely, and they just move to a fiat-backed system that is responsible, then that could coexist with Bitcoin, right? You've got Bitcoin, which is the ultimate scarcity asset. No one can just arbitrarily just move that into an inflationary environment. But you could have gold standard type fiat currencies alongside it. I always just gone, it's not going to happen, right? It's just the US isn't going to let it happen. But then when I see these multiple countries come together like this, now, admittedly, this article is not claiming they are doing anything really. It just seems to be going, maybe they're doing this, they're about to introduce that. It seems to be in the very early stages. So until they actually announce stuff, then I'm going to stay in the skeptical zone. But it's four countries. You got Brazil. Okay, maybe throw them in the bin. But you got.
I was going to say Brazil still get mentioned, but I'm like,
yeah, they're the B on BRICS, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And
well, South Africa are poor as fuck. So I don't know why they're involved.
But South Africa can now be replaced with Saudi Arabia, so we can keep an S there. But the B is pretty much gone.
And then Argentina were like, please, can we be included? No, you're far too poor.
Yeah.
Really, it's BRICS, isn't it? You got Russia, India, China. Now they are
Brazil is
powerhouses.
Brazil is a developing country, big population, so there is the benefits to it, but they're having issues with their money. Like the last 5 years or so, I think they've been going down, whereas they were starting to rise. And I think they were the South American equivalent to India, but they have dropped off a bit, or quite a lot.
Yeah.
Also interesting, if they let in Argentina in, they could reshuffle the acronym to become Iraq.
I was going to say, if they let Argentina in, they might as well just let in, I don't know, the Isle of Man.
Or as they say in America, Iraq.
But this is one of the things, right? So basically, it's on here. Russia and China are probably the two, and then you've also got India, who are pretty substantial.
Yeah, they are.
And you've gone,
thing I would say,
and I just went, let's just work through the game theory of this, right? Let's just assume they do it, and and let's say they stick to it for 50 years. Because we probably know they're going to come off it at some point, right? Because these people that are setting this stuff up will set it up for the right reasons. They want to get away from the US dollar. They want to create some stability in their countries. Their countries have been all over the place, being bullied here, there, and everywhere by America for the last 50 years. So they want to get some stabilization, let people accumulate wealth again, and see how they do. Let's just assume all that happens, right, over the next 50 years, because we're out anyway after that. So, and you just go, okay, well, that will be really interesting, right? It would be, you'd have these 4 countries that essentially their international dealings would all be in BRICS coin or whatever they want to call it. And it would actually be sound money because it would be based on gold. And you go, okay, that's an interesting concept. And I was just going, all right, so I think in that scenario, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, when the US dollar goes to 0, they could survive because they've backed their currency properly by gold. So provided they haven't come off that gold standard, they could be okay.
And they actually have the gold still.
Yeah, because they're on a gold standard, right? You can't be on a gold standard without the gold. And so then suddenly what we end up is with this 3 different dynamics now. You have the out-and-out fiat countries. I suppose you have the very poor ones, and then you have the big, massive, the euro and the dollar. You then got the Bitcoiners, and then you got BRICS that are on a gold standard. And I guess then it's just up to the people, right? And then you go, oh, wow, we now do have 3 options where it's stay in hyperinflation and just trust the governments that are talking, and we know what's going to happen there. They ultimately lose everything and they go to 0, and who knows what kind of regimes they're going to have to try and bring in to control stuff, socialism, the Great Reset and all that. Then you've got the Bitcoiners who are going to be transient. They're going to move to who's friendly, and there's going to be some smaller nations that probably support that. But maybe you've got a Brazil, Russia, India, and China that maybe they survive the crash. This is their way of surviving it. If they do, this is how they survive.
But there's meant to be there's a lot of countries are rumored to be interested in joining this kind of like alliance. So Saudi Arabia mentioned, Argentina, because they can't control their spending.
Can't let everyone in, right?
And literally, if you call it like Bitcoin or something like that, and it's backed by gold, somehow you've got some kind of like China monetary authority or whatever it is presiding over it all. But the risk is that they say you have to put your gold in a central place, and you end up with another US situation where they steal it all to do their infrastructure, because that's inevitable. But we'll be really good. Then along comes a new president in China. He takes all gold, goes, fuck off, we've got bigger guns than you.
Yeah. Oh, if you work the game theory out long enough, I completely concur with you that BRICS coin ends up being fiat coin, or it's the new US.
It's just a dollar point.
It's just in the short term.
2.0.
It's in the short to medium term. What does this mean?
Because it does.
Because my theory. But because my theory is that these nations are nations that they're like, I was just Googling the top 10 villains, because I don't think they
top 10 villains, was it Klaus Schwab?
I was thinking like Shredder from the Turtles or something like that.
Philip
But,
Schofield.
yeah.
I thought
But
that's
I don't see
Predators.
them
That's
actually.
Predators. I love you were talking about.
Yeah. I don't see them getting along for a very long term. So to your point, short to medium term, they have a common enemy. But really, you don't even see Russia fully backing China right now. They're in a war.
But if you look at China and their history, they don't like to get involved in other people's affairs. China deals with China.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're all very siloed and they all want their own world dominations. For example, India wants to be a superpower and could well be a superpower with regards to China and their population decreasing as well, which is probably a whole nother podcast for another time.
Well, population increases and decreases are only really relevant because of Keynesian monetary theories. Like literally, you need a growing population, hence why retirement ages get scrapped, hence why immigration, hence why we're panicking about but dropping birth rates. So literally, we watch it going, why does this all matter? And you kind of go, oh, they need more people to print more money. Otherwise, it becomes unsustainable, and we can't talk about growth anymore.
Well, yeah. Well, they stunted themselves when they said the one baby rule, and it's now come back to hurt them. But we're going off the point. Essentially, that these superpowers, I can't see them getting along long term.
No, and that's why Satoshi was right. That's why we need decentralization. We can't have any individual or group of individuals in control of the monetary supply. We need decentralization. Code needs to be in control and hash power. And that's why we have Bitcoin, right? There's no way that a single individual or group of individuals can just suddenly take over Bitcoin and decide, oh, I think that Bitcoin needs this, so I'm going to print a load more Bitcoin to do that. And we're doing it for the right reasons. We're fighting this war. We're fighting some lawsuit or no, it's like, no, you're not allowed to do that. That literally the second you come off 21 million Bitcoin, if there's 21,000,001 Bitcoin, Bitcoin's dead. It's over. If someone manages to do that. And so it's absolutely is the case where, that's why I say it's interesting, because I think this BRICS thing against the US dollar, it's probably their best version of defense, if still in a fiat world. The problem is they don't want to go to a full Bitcoin standard just because they lose control, right? Because long term, I think they're thinking exactly what you're saying, which is let's counteract the dollar this way. And I think Russia are then going, and then we do this to take over everything. And China are going, yeah, partner with these guys. Then once this and this happens, then we pivot and we become the US dollar. And I think India are doing the same. Like all three of those big fucking players that are sat in there all secretly think they're going to be the big dog when all the dust is settled.
Yeah,
they want to be the next standard. It's the India standard, the China standard, or the Russia standard. That's the game they're playing, and they're just going, when the US dollar falls, we need a buffer, and then we'll push on from there.
It's like WWE Royal Rumble, get the big guy out the ring and then us little guys will fight it out.
And then guess what? Whoever wins becomes the bad guy again, right? It's
correct. They
start abusing the power. They've got no threat. And but so Bitcoin just continues along the bottom of that. But I didn't see this coming, I must admit, in my list of things that was going to happen whilst the US dollar fails. I didn't see a number of big countries getting together and going onto a gold standard. Because
I think in a way it was inevitable that this kind of like allegiance between some of the number two countries was going to happen in order to move the US out of the way. And I think the only way which countries are going to move away from the dollar for definite is a gold-backed currency. So it does make a lot of sense, whether you thought it was going to happen or not. I think it's just I think Russia,
I don't think
they've
they'd
always
admit it, you know, because like by saying that you need to go onto a gold standard, right? That's like China, Russia, and India admitting that the money that they give out right now is bollocks, right? And it's the big admission
but
that I
everyone
didn't think they
knows,
would
you
do.
know,
But I guess they're backed into a corner going, we're getting so fucked. We just kind of need to admit our money is bollocks and we need to back it by something. Because surely the people in those countries are going to go, well, hold on, why is our money bollocks? Why I thought it was backed by something before. And they're going to have to somehow explain the fact it was backed by nothing. They could print it out of thin air. But now it's backed by an ounce of gold or whatever.
Why is that important for them, and why is the country doing it? It does raise a lot of questions, but
yeah,
everyone's asleep at the wheel, so it doesn't matter. You kind of think about our parents, like my dad, he knows there's inflation, he knows it's weird, but he's just like, oh, it's just how it is.
Yeah.
And so if you went, oh, here's a gold back, we'd be like, oh, great, it's better money. Look what the Conservatives have done for us. And it's just like, my God.
Yeah, it's bizarre that, I guess, as always.
Well, the reason why, by the way, I was just thinking about that as to why he may be asleep at the wheel is because he's not really got an answer to what the answer is, essentially, which is Bitcoin, because either he's not trusting in it. Or
he just thinks I'm sitting there with my mate.
And
he just thinks I'm there sitting with my mates with my magical internet money, probably taking mushrooms or something.
yeah,
I wish.
yeah.
Round our virtual cauldron.
Hey, this podcast would be a lot more fun, wouldn't it? No. Ultimately, I think that's the key thing, isn't it? Most people don't know what they don't know. And if they do, they will naturally be skeptical of it. And equally, it will take them time, like it took us time, to process what the answer might be. It's like when people say, oh, what's the point in voting? Because my vote doesn't count towards anything. Well, it does, because if everybody voted for one way, it would then get done.
No. Record turnouts.
I'm still laughing at that. Yeah.
All the dead people wake up and come out to vote, and you never know.
Yeah. Someone who didn't even go on the campaign, someone who stayed at home in his cellar, got more votes than Obama.
Record votes, baby. He's pretty dynamic.
Yeah.
We got Brazil next as well. This is why I was surprised that Brazil were the B in BRICS, because they just seem
but maybe it's a kind of like, maybe it goes gold back fiat currency, then it goes gold back CBDC, then it goes CBDC. Maybe that's the kind of trajectory which are leading them on, because they need to get like BRICS.
It's a complete scam, yeah.
Yeah, they need Nigeria, they need Saudi, they need Turkey, they need Greece, Italy, Sweden, whoever else to go, don't want to trade in a dollar anymore. I want to trade in a Bitcoin. And once everyone's off the dollar and the dollar's obsolete, and they're going, well, Bitcoin's now the thing, they can then change what Bitcoin is. So I just think it'll just literally be, 1945 through to 1971 again.
Yeah.
It'll just be a different evolution.
Yeah.
Also, as well, I would say that the BRICS formed, because I was just looking back to confirm, in 2009, post 2008 financial crisis crash. And at that time, I believe that Brazil was doing slightly better because they were an up-and-coming nation. And there was things happening over there, again, India have continued to come up. China have continued to come up, and they were obviously coming up well before 2009. Russia were constantly steady post-Cold War. So I guess forming that coalition between them all, and South Africa coming in 2010, at that time was good. See hindsight in the way things have panned out. Brazil's gone down, South Africa's gone down, but Russia, India, and China have continued to thrive.
Yeah. To be fair, I just googled countries by GDP, and I probably take it back because I guess their political influence, Russia just feels so much bigger, right? But by GDP, Russia is 11th in the world, Brazil is 10th, India 5th, China 2nd, which we know. Is it really second? It's probably first. But we knew China are the real big boys. And then India 5th. You got, so is it the countries that aren't in there, right? In the top 10, Japan, Germany, UK, France, Italy, Canada. So out of those you go, well, maybe Japan could join, but everything else is European or Canada. They're WEF countries, right? They're all tied into the United States, who's number one, obviously, in this list. So they're the group of people they're fighting against. But they do stand out, weirdly, the China, India, Brazil, and Russia. They're big players. That's 4 of the top 11.
Yeah.
And
South Africa.
They could. That's a sizable threat, and to stop them via some type of war or military coup is going to be difficult to knock over 4 in one go, right? It's going to. Who knows what's coming? There could be something fucking massive in the because it'd be funny now that we've all been orange pilled and like we know we're looking at it.
Yeah.
If we see a story tomorrow about the BRICS countries, like these military coups or some natural disaster or some war that they're doing, you go, oh my God, it's happening. They're making
what's
shit
funny
up.
as well is it normally either happens just before the pod or just after the pod in terms of recording. I don't know what it is, but the Tuesday night it happens or something big happens.
Because obviously we know they're going up World War III against the Russia one, right? And then you've also got Taiwan for China. And I guess Brazil, they just go, we can do a military coup there. They don't have to fucking try. But I've seen India hasn't had much heat recently. So what are they going to get? India seems to be flying under the radar. They must be like already CIA moles. They're just because Russia and China are getting so much heat. Like they're building up to a world war against both of them, aren't they? Brazil is like, who gives a fuck? And India is like, just nothing. So I'm guessing they're just going, let's go after the 2 biggies, right? It's China and Russia are the real threat. And we're getting slowly but surely brainwashed into going, these are the bad guys. We need to start a nuclear war against both of them. And I guess this is the reason, right? They're looking to combat the US dollar properly and go onto a gold standard form of fiat, which invalidates the use for a US dollar, which is the biggest threat to the US dominance of the world.
I just don't know if it could go against China.
It's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
I don't want to see it. I don't want to see him go against Russia. But I don't want to see any of these fucking World War IIIs. Tens of millions of people are going to die, and who knows if we're fucking one of them.
Yeah, and they just won't care about the people as well.
No, they'll be in their bunkers, and we're going to be
they
fucking
don't
running
care
around.
about their own people right now, sending them to war. Against Ukraine, they don't care. So why would they care about another nation's?
Yeah, it's kind of terrifying. And who knows, this might be one of the end games, right? If we thought they'd come for Bitcoin and make it illegal, which they probably will do. But if BRICS create this like very public rival currency, then who knows? World War III could be their last gasp attempt to go. We have to go to war with Russia and China, and they obviously make up a load of reasons as to why, some type of humanitarian reason. But the real reason underneath will be that their money could be more sound than ours, and you might start using it. So we need to stop it before it happens. That's going to be miserable. I used to think this. Well, there's still part of me that thinks it's WWE, like the whole thing.
Always.
And potentially Russia, China, and America are all talking behind the scenes. I genuinely really fucking hope that conspiracy theory that I have in my head is true, because if it isn't, the reality is much worse. If they genuinely are rivals, I can't see a scenario where they don't, where at least one of them doesn't get so desperate they fire a nuke at someone, and once one gets fired, that's free for all now, isn't it? You know, now fire 10 back, each one, 1 million people die. It's fucking horrible. So I do not want to see a nuclear war in any shape or form. I really hope we somehow avoid that. But if this BRICS thing is as real as it looks, it's pretty brutal. But I actually can't see a scenario where we don't end up in that kind of scenario, because America aren't going to they're not just going to roll over and die. That's the problem.
No.
They're going to fight. And how they...
Yes, I think the UK rolling over and dying after World War II was a bit of an exception. It never happens like that.
Well, I think we didn't really roll over and die. We just went, okay, we'll suckle from the teat of America. You know, it was a bit of, we got paid off.
We'll just tag team on to the next one.
Yeah, I was going to say, but we were the number one going into there. I mean, it's just to go around, oh yeah, US, you can have it now. It was a bit of a roll over and die, but that just doesn't happen in history.
Yeah, you tend to die, fall on your sword. But yeah.
Right. Should we move on that positive note? Is this the last story which we're on to?
We've got 2 left.
Oh, so we haven't really touched upon CBDCs.
Yeah. So last week we had the CBDCs, essentially letting it out the bag, in terms of they're not supposed to say what CBDCs actually do. And this week we're back with some more secrets. Far away.
Yeah, so in this one, essentially this is the Brazil's pilot for their CBDC. And what the code exposed was that Brazil's government could freeze or even reduce the balance of citizens. It's in the code, which is obviously, you know, even worse. Bizarrely, the freezing thing was well known, right? It's like, yeah, of course, a CBDC could control how you use your money. You could have your funds frozen if you speak out against government, blah, 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 blah. But the actual reduction of a balance and just taking money completely from it, I thought they're just going to do that through fines, inflation. That's how they reduce balances of the people. It's just really easy to reduce the balance of everyone by 20%. Is just increase the monetary supply by 20% and keep that 20% for yourself. Piece of piss. But to have actually coded it into the CBDC for Brazil and gone, oh yeah, like literally from the central point of that currency, they could just go into someone's bank and just take money from it. Yeah, what else do you need to know, really? This is it, isn't it? You know, the truth, as we almost say in Bitcoin, right? Code is truth. You trust the code. You don't trust what people say about Bitcoin. Trust what the code says Bitcoin does. And here we are about CBDCs, and this code says they can freeze your funds and they can take your funds.
But faster payments and helicopter payments, brah.
All right, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in.
That's what Dishy Rishi said. But the thing, once again, we talk about this, we know it, we've read it, we've seen it, it's been reported, it's out there in the news. The general public could be like, but that helicopter payment, brah, I can buy myself a bigger TV, brah. And I'll be like, ooh, that's stimmy. And you'll be like, but it's called slave coin. But that TV.
Yeah. It's a classic. People will sleepwalk into it, and it's going to happen. It's just then, like with most of these games, is what's the loophole to the game? Because there is always typically a loophole at some point along the drama.
I think it just needs, when things like this do actually move along a bit, they need sufficient protests to raise awareness. And it just needs to be, clear, these are what it is. But the problem is that everything which is a protest against the government thinking is just labelled as QAnon and whatever else at the moment, far right wing and white supremacist thinking.
Yeah, it is weird actually. Even today, right? Someone switched. It was like the hairdresser came around and she switched on the TV and like the BBC came on and they were talking about climate change, right? It's some like radio phone-in show, and I'd obviously missed their crazy guy had phoned in and was ranting that climate change was just cyclical and just part of the Earth's warming and da da da. So they quickly had a load of scientists on, and very quickly they went, yeah, clearly that person that was just on, their political leaning is to the far right. And why do you think it is that these people on the far right are denying decades and decades of science? I'm just there watching this going, where did the fact that their political leaning is far right even come from in this debate? Because I didn't hear the caller, but I'm pretty sure he didn't declare himself a far right extremist. He just phoned in to go, you're all chatting shit. And they pegged him as a far right guy. And you go, it just comes up so often. It's nearly a meme now, where every time you disagree against some government narrative, whether it be CBDCs, whether it be lockdowns, whether it be money printing, whether it be trans this or that, or whether it be whatever, you just get
I think we need to pause there. You're insulting Miss No Show. It's not fair.
She's fine with me insulting her. It is weird though, right? It's because the second you get called far right, and obviously like Seneva, look, you've been in our chat for long enough now, but you are a far right extremist. It's like, so you're a racist. and it's just like, it's just bizarre, right? Because I think sometimes I was probably the first person pegged as this, and you go, oh shit, I am like a white straight guy.
Are you?
And it's like, I'm pretty sure, right? I'm pretty sure maybe I'm not white though. Yeah, I don't know. But you just go like, oh no, like it's annoying kind of being in that category where you go, oh, you fit the far right guy. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Shit, I do fit the demographic.
You need
like, it's hard for me to go, yeah, but I'm not. I have these opinions that are anti-government, but guess what? It doesn't mean I'm also a racist, xenophobe, anti-Semite, and all that. But now you're in this category as well, and so at least you can be like, well, good luck pinning the racist one on me. And by the way, like racist doesn't mean you hate people of different skin color. It means you hate black people. So
yeah, you
hate black people, bro.
It's true. Yeah. It's a hard one, isn't it? Because
it's just discrediting opinion, or rather, kind of like it's almost like a way to stop a movement now, isn't it? Like lockdowners were far right, alt, and then it's moved like the language because it was having no effect, and everyone's just going, like right wing, fuck off. There's a few things about them being white supremacists, and when they showed the photos, this is in America, one was Mexican, one was black, and they're just like, I think that's just lost its way now because they overused it very quickly.
Well, the way I look at it, it's similar to paper, rock, scissors. If you're one thing, oh, we've got this to counter it, and then if you use the other, oh well, this will counter it. There is no win out of any of this, unless you're. And I know this isn't in rock, paper, scissors, but unless you are a black female lesbian with a disability, with a high ESG score, and with zero carbon footprint, I don't know what trumps all of it.
Yeah, I think
How do
we're
you
kind of
win?
like, it's a good point about the rock, paper, scissors. Like, there's always a response, but it's always emotional. Like, I've had these conversations at home where I've been called a conspiracy theorist. I said, you're using an emotional response. Why don't you tell me something logical and discredit me? But you know, when someone's shrieking as what appears to be that you're far right or whatever, they won't
Yeah,
listen to stop being emotional. I'd say,
yeah.
but what would be the tone which you get back if you told them they're being emotional? You're being yeah, probably sexist.
I remember when don't know how long we've been doing the podcast, but you even asked me what my political leanings were. I kind of knew at the time you were like alluding to the fact that I'm probably far right. And I just went, yeah, I'm politically homeless in there. But I know that, yeah, people will peg me far right all day long because I have
So
to be right. I'm anti-government. So if I'm anti-government, I'm far right. But you go, hold on, half of those, if you're on the right, it means you vote for that part of government. And I'm going, I ain't fucking part of those boys. I don't want to vote for a government. I want to vote to be self-sovereign and them to leave me the fuck alone. But nearly all my political views would be pegged as far right because it's pulling down the bollocks that is the government narrative, which is all just covering up their money printing. And I'm just trying to go, they're fucking printing money and blaming on this. And they're trying to filter off more money into that and over here and over here. It's all bollocks. The war's bollocks. Climate change is bollocks. It's all the same thing. They're just printing money and keeping it for themselves. Yeah. Oh, you must be a racist. You know, where the fuck did that come from? Like what? We're not even discussing race. I'm discussing money printing here.
right, on that positive note, we've kind of gone on a bit of a tangent. So should we finish with our final story about Satoshi?
Yes.
So this is one which I couldn't actually read because for some reason Forbes wouldn't let me read this article. But Craig Wright is going to try and use patents to stop Bitcoin, which I struggle to understand how he could do this.
But it can't sue the world.
Yeah, he can't even beat Hodlnaut in a court case.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting one, right? Because there are like patents do rule the world to a certain degree,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
You know, so every time Apple create a version of how to display apps, they all patent that, and then everyone else can't display an app like that because if they do, they're infringing a patent. And in reality, all that Apple did was arrange some apps. They just probably were first to do that, and that's happened many times. And there's many. It's known as patent trolling, where there's plenty of people that have created patents that they have no clue or no ability to execute and build the product, but they think of a way that technology might be used in the future, and they just patent it, and then just sit back and wait. And eventually someone builds a technology that is close enough to their patent that they go, you're infringing my patent, you need to pay me to keep doing the thing you're doing. Yet they had no clue that it could be used in that way. And essentially that is what Craig fucking Wright is doing here.
Craig Satoshi Wright.
Craig Stephen Wright.
It's interesting you mentioned this as well, because just last week, Dr. Evil 10% and I were talking about this in terms of like patents and copyright laws stopping competitors, because what it does is it provides moats for them. And interestingly, you pick Apple as one of those companies, and they are known to be in the top 10 patent kings in the US, alongside IBM, Samsung, Canon, Microsoft, Intel, TSM, LG Electronics, Huawei, and Qualcomm as well. So yeah, it's exactly that. And he's a dick, but he's a fucking intelligent dick, and it wouldn't surprise me if he has gone down this route, thinking, well, can't stop a patent, and I'll register a number of them.
Yeah, and according to this article, he has 4,000 of them. And but the good thing is, right? Well, it doesn't matter to Bitcoin, but he has got a number of patents approved that are about blockchain, storing data on a blockchain, and you could argue that Bitcoin infringes that patent, right? But the issue he's going to have against Bitcoin is, well, who the fuck do you sue? And so he created a patent around the fucking white paper, right? So, and then, or at least copyright, I think, over the white paper, and then forced a load of developers to take it down, and they had to comply, just because they wanted to avoid, not because he was right or had genuine authority of doing so. They just didn't want the legal fight to have to prove they didn't have to take it down. So he's doing the same thing. However, most of his patents, these 4,000 patents, they end up going after shitcoins, because a lot of them are storing data on a blockchain to be able to create another coin, store the link to a JPEG on the blockchain. He owns all these. So this is going to be interesting, actually, just to see all this play out, because technically Craig Wright actually does own the intellectual property for shitcoining. So there's some weird world where he has gone after them and legally claimed all their bullshit. So do they have to pay him the profits from their bullshit? Because he clearly came up with none of this. He's clearly not Satoshi, just to give anyone fucking had any fucking question in their head. Maybe he was.
But he says he is.
Yeah, he's a sociopath. And yeah, it is, and I've read a couple of patents that he's got, and it literally, like, if you look at Ethereum and some of its core use cases, Craig owns them. He literally has a patent on them.
What year did he have the patents taken up?
Yeah, after they created it, but I don't know if that matters in patent land.
Yeah, patents last for 20 years.
And it's whoever gets it in there first, right?
Yeah.
Like, even though you have a product out maybe for 10 years, if you haven't patented it, then that just means you didn't protect your IP. If I patent it, you got to pay me now. It's the weird world of, that's why you can be a patent troll. And it's why, I don't know if you ever watched Dragon's Den and all that kind of stuff. One of the first things they always ask about inventions are, do you have the patent? Because number one, it proves that you're the person that is own this idea. And number two, it means you've protected yourself from someone else patenting it in the future and you having to pay them royalties forever and a day, even though they weren't the original person. Normally the person that gets a patent is like the 20th person that came up with the fucking idea. They're just the one that knew the patent exists. The first 19 just thought they could build a product that would be useful to the market and go sell it. And then they didn't realize the 20th person that saw this would go, I'm going to go down to the patent office, sell 0 of this product, but get 20% of every sale because I own the IP. And that's what CSW is doing here. And so I think if he's going to be effective, he'll be effective on shit coins, which is going to be kind of funny, because he's not going to affect Bitcoin in any shape or form. But, and I also know that by serving 4,000 patents as well, they're really expensive to get these patents. They tend to cost
that. Is it Calvin Arup, his name is behind him?
Yeah. But he spent tens of millions probably getting these patents. So in the moment, he hasn't sued anyone successfully. So this is an article just going, here he comes. So he's going to have to try and pin down. The problem about suing shitcoiners is nearly all of them are bust right now and just disappeared, and they're all over the place.
was what's his name? Vitalik, or however you
Vitalik,
pronounce
yeah.
it.
Vitalik, you know.
You
Yeah,
can
but
go
who knows,
afterwards.
right? Like, yeah, maybe you could try and sue him, and maybe sue XRP. But if he comes after Bitcoin, he's going to have a massive problem, because who the fuck do you sue? And the problem is he'll sue maybe a couple of high profile Bitcoiners, but even if he wins, so what? Does that affect our Bitcoin? No, like the core protocol stays the same. So he is just the classic patent troll, because I don't think he even cares. He just wants to get these patents, sue a load of people, maybe finally get a win. He sued enough people who called him a fraud, and he seems to be losing those cases. So now he just wants to sue people for using Bitcoin or using a shitcoin. And he just wants a win on the books, doesn't he? And then he can suddenly go, "I see, this proves that I invented all this. This proves it." And it doesn't prove shit, but in his little twisted world, maybe it does. Just very tragic.
Thinking maybe he is the ruler of the other world, the netherworld of shitcoinery. You know, you'll have Bitcoin over here, and then everybody bows down to CSW over there.
Mm. I think weirdly, I think there's very few people that bow down to him now, because obviously he created his own shitcoin, didn't he? The bullshit version of Bitcoin. It's down like 98% against Bitcoin
Yeah.
now. So that was his crowd. So he lost all them. They're gone. But so I think he's in the room with himself,
yeah.
and Irene. And he's like, let's
and
go
his,
win a court
and his
case against
patent solicitors, who are expensive.
Yeah. And he just wants to win one case, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Sat there filing these 4,000 patents over the last couple of years, going, one of these has to be valuable. I'll get them on one of them. And the sad thing is, I obviously don't give a shit about shit coins, but they should just fall on their own sword, right? They should just but having someone go along behind them and claim the IP that they probably did create themselves. Even who wants to see him fail, is going, oh, that's a little. I want him to fail legit, not have some guy stab him in the side. Just that guy isn't meant to be on the field. He's not a player. Like let's let them fall of their own fruition. When Craig Wright walked on it's weird how even against shitcoins, like we have a common enemy, and it is CSW. he's like the US dollar. We all fucking hate him. It could even get China and Russia to unite. Bitcoiners and shitcoiners unite against that fucker.
He'll die soon. And hopefully with it, the patents. He's not built a very good succession plan, because he's ostracized himself from everybody.
Scammers usually do.
It doesn't really matter to him, does it?
No. Cool. Right. Well, there you have it. That was Pod 105 of the uncancelable, not of the most cancelable show and the unsponsorable show, The 4Bs, brought to you by Mr. Rollin, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellent Execution, and once again, she was here, but she's never here, Mrs. No Show, aka No Show. Peace.